Welcome to What to Do When, a podcast for when you're feeling a little lost, low, or lonely in life. This is a space for honest conversations about just how damn terrifying, messy, and confusing life can be. Figuring out who you are, healing your wounds, finding the right partner, building an amazing career, it's a lot. We're going to open up, unpack, and normalize all the big, complicated emotions and struggles in life. The anxiety, the self-doubt, the overwhelm, and the other spirals it's so easy to fall into. Because I find that the more that we open up and get real, the more we can learn, and the less pressure that we feel to have it all figured out and to be perfect all of the time. And this is the sweet spot where healing happens. So let's get into it. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the What to Do When podcast. Gosh, we've got a lot to talk about, and it's great. It's really great being back here. We're at our 4th episode of 2025, and things feel different. And that is what is inspiring today's episode, is all about embracing the chaos that comes with change, embracing the anxiety-inducing chaos that comes with change and around change. And I have some exciting stuff to share. Like I said, we got a lot to catch up on because a lot has changed in my life, and I have changed quite a few things. And I knew that 2025 was going to be a year that looked like change, but I expected and I hoped and I laid out this idea of what these changes would look like, and most importantly, what these changes would feel like. And when I decided to create some of these changes, which I'll share with you in a second, when I decided to create some of these changes in my life for 2025, I just thought it's going to be great. It's going to be this beautiful transformation. It's going to be this, change that is so easy and so simple, and it's just a quick decision that I make, and it's going to be glorious. It's going to be comfortable. What I forgot to anticipate and to expect, like with all the other freaking changes that I've made in my life, you think I would have learnt by now, is the chaos and the anxiety and the overwhelm and the resistance that has come with making big change. This year, I decided to do a couple of things. One of them was to get a new job in a field that I have been wanting to be a part of for a while. And I actually started that really recently, and it's going good. And I also decided that I wanted to start my counselling studies. And again, that has been something that I've been toying with for a long time, feeling that my coaching business isn't exactly where I want to be, and that I do want to step more into a counselling space, into the mental health space, and I wanted to start that study journey somewhere, and counselling seems like the greatest, most first step that I could take in that journey to expand my ability to work with people and to support people. And I started that. So I made 2 really big changes this year, very recently, in the last sort of month. And again, maybe like you and the changes that you've made in your life, I expected them to feel easier than they did, if I'm honest. If I'm really honest, I expected them to feel a little bit more put together, to feel a little bit more productive. I really did not anticipate the anxiety and the overwhelm and the, for lack of a better word, the chaos that I felt when I was really deciding to make some of these changes, when I was, really signing up for my studies, when I was hitting that button, when I was paying the money, when I was embarking on this new job. I got to greet this old part of myself that I have not felt in quite some time. And that part of myself, probably I would refer to it, if I could name it in a word, is overwhelm. And within that overwhelm, there is and not only anxiety and chaos, but there's also a lot of overthinking and sometimes even verging on a sense of panic. And it has been a difficult part of myself to be with. And it's been a slightly challenging process where I've had to lean into a lot of things to support myself in this change. And I wanted to share with you and have this just fucking this honest conversation about how hard it really is to make change in your life. Even though you know that this change is for the good of you, it's for your growth, it's a positive change, it's going to make your life so much better, and yet you're still smacked in the face with resistance. I faffed about for so long trying to make these changes way harder than they needed to be, and I watched my mind create all these stories and excuses and just ideas that were so ridiculous, but that made the journey 10 times harder. I genuinely felt like with this change, I had a really simple path directed out. I had a path handed to me, essentially. I had a beautiful platter laid out by the universe saying, hey, babe, here's your next steps. And it was really quite magical in the terms of how they were presented to me, how it sort of all got laid out. And guess what my brain did? My brain went, no. Essentially, it said, no, too easy. Something must be wrong with that. That's not right. You have to earn this. You have to figure this out. This is a massive problem that you have to solve. And I spent weeks researching, applying, like changing my CV, making the perfect cover letter, start like really researching these different courses and looking at all these different options and different diplomas or degrees that I, thought that I wanted to do, looking into things that cost 10 times the amount of what I'm doing now and that were 10 times more complicated than what I'm doing now. And I watched for a period of about 2 to 3 weeks, I watched myself just go through this pattern and through this sense of chaos. And it made me realize that in my professional life hasn't changed in quite some time. And when I said to you that I haven't felt this panicked overwhelmed, messy, complicated part of myself within my career arena in quite some time, it really has been quite some time. And with that change, with me changing I wouldn't say I'm changing what I want to be doing and what I feel like my purpose is. I'd say I'm getting more specific. And that feels like change, for sure. It absolutely feels like change. My brain was saying, you're letting go of things. I was starting to grieve certain ideas of what I thought I wanted to do. And I noticed that the biggest thing of all was I noticed that I had changed. I noticed that I wasn't wanting to do the same things in the same way that I was before. And I noticed that things weren't making me happy or satisfied in the way that they were before. And I noticed all these signs that were pointing to the fact that I needed to change something in my career, that I needed to change something in my business. And again, I ignored them for far too long. Like we do, I ignored all the signs. And that is part of the process. And then when I really got around to it and actually embracing the change, I was genuinely surprised by all of the chaos, by all of the anxiety, by all of these very young parts of myself that came up again that was so panicked. It took me back to getting my first job. I got my first job at a cafe when I was 15, and I was actually fired from this job because I was such a freaking terrible waitress. But I was so anxious and so overwhelmed and so panicked going into that job, and so much so that I just made all sorts of silly mistakes. Like I gave somebody a fork with their, cereal, granola, and yogurt breakfast. and I was doing things the wrong way around, and I remember dreading going, and I felt so anxious and just awful. And it was a very similar experience that came up again. I was 15 then, I'm 29 now, and I think that's such an important thing to remember, is that these parts of ourselves, these vulnerable parts of ourselves that live with us, they don't go away. No matter what age you are, no matter how long they might, disappear for some of those feelings and emotions, they can return, and they can return in full force. And I know, and I do talk with people about creating change a lot in their lives, and I know that if you, and we're talking about you now, we're not talking about me anymore, if you're here listening to this podcast, there's likely many changes that you might want to make in your life. And there's always change we want to make in our life. We always want to change. We always want to grow. We always want to be better. We always want to achieve more. There's likely some things that you want to change, whether that is things within your career and professional life, like I've been experiencing, whether it's your relationships, whether it's where you live, whether it's your routines, your habits, whether it's you want to start a side hustle, maybe you want to start a podcast, I don't know. Maybe you just want to change how you show up every day. Maybe you want to feel like you take on more. Maybe you want to feel more capable. Maybe you want to feel more energized. Maybe you want to run a marathon. Maybe you want to start the gym. Maybe you want to change. And I want to remind you that we do tend to create this false illusion of what change is going to be like. And it's gorgeous. And, we get this sort of idea in our heads that we can just let go of one thing and then start or be another. Like change feels like, okay, I was going left, but now I'm going to go right. I was walking down this path in this direction. I'm just going to turn around. I'm going to go the other way. But the reality is, and chaos theory is a great part to start understanding this more, but what it speaks to is that we don't change in the way that we think we change. We don't just simply put something down and pick something new up. What we do is we have to put down or let go of an old way of being, of a system inside of us that we've created. We have to unpick, unravel, and unlearn that. And then we have to create something new from scratch, a new way of being, a new dream, a new way of showing up, a new morning routine, a new career path. You have to pick something up. You have to build it from scratch. You have to create this new part of you, this new dream, this new way of being. You don't have it already. You can't just pick this thing up because it doesn't exist for you yet. You have to build it. You have to create it. You have to be a beginner at it to start off with. You have to be fresh. You have to not know what you're doing. You have to figure it out. And then when you go through that process, like I said, you're not just putting down the old and picking up the new. You're unlearning and learning at the same time. And in that process, guess what the fuck your brain does? It swings between the two. In this process of change, instead of making it all clean, you end up swinging between the old and the new way of being. Your brain ends up going back and forth and back and forth. It's this cycle. And if you can really reflect on yourself, if you can think of a time that you tried to change something, say within maybe something simple within your routine, maybe you started, trying to wake up earlier, for example, and if you really reflect and look back, you might notice this pattern where, you do the new way for one day, right? Let's say you're trying to wake up at 5 a.m., for example. God knows why. But you start the journey of waking up at 5 a.m., you nail it day 1, you might nail it day 2. Come day 3, you might be over it by then. And so you'll swing the other way. You might hit snooze on that alarm and you'll go back to that old way of being and you'll wake up at 7:30, right? And then you start again Okay, let me try again. Oh, okay. You go between the old and the new. That's part of the building, because when you don't have something, so let's say you can really skate by on your bare bones to wake up at 5 a.m. on day one because it's exciting and it's new, and then you can usually, dig deep into the reservoir to start that on day 2. But usually by day 3, you don't got nothing left, right? Your brain has no idea how to do day 3. It just managed to pull together day 1 and 2. It's got no idea how to do this for a third day in a row. So what does it do? Swings the other way. Swings back to the old way of being, you hit that snooze button, you wake up later. And then comes back around, you might try again. Day 4, day 5, day 6, you might say, okay, I can do it again. Or it might be you reset over the weekend and you start again on Monday. Very common experience, right? To start again on Monday. But what happens is, in that process, we forget that we have to build this. We have these huge fucking false expectations of ourselves that we should know how to do things, that we should be able to change quickly and efficiently and elegantly, very elegantly and easily, and just embrace it, right? That there should be no resistance. And then if we add another layer on top of this, stay with me here. The next layer is, whenever you feel a little bit of resistance to change, or when change feels difficult, right? Let's say, for example, you want to change jobs, and so you start applying to new jobs. Let's say that nobody gets back to you. You don't get any interviews, you don't even get any phone calls, and it's been a whole 2 weeks. Not really that long, right? And so what then happens here is you start to create a story to make this make sense, and you begin to think, maybe this is a sign. Maybe this is a sign that I should stay at my current job. Maybe this is a sign that I shouldn't change. Maybe this is a sign that things are going to get better. And I have witnessed myself do this in not only jobs, that's definitely a common example for me, but in relationships, but in life, in friendships. And I've taken things not happening quickly, elegantly, and efficiently. I've taken that resistance, that anxiety or the overwhelm that I feel with change. I've taken all of that and I've made it become a sign. I've made it become something that means that I shouldn't change. And this is exactly what your brain wants. Your brain is so sneaky. And here's something that I really want you to drill into and remember when it comes to change. And you might already know this. And if you do, I want you to hear it in this new way. I want you to let it sink in. Human beings don't like change. Human being brains are not designed to enjoy change. Change is scary to the human body. Change does elicit feelings and emotions that are uncomfortable to deal with. Because change is unpredictable. And what's unpredictable is not safe. Your innermost human parts, they thrive on predictability and safety. Your brain, your little monkey brain, it wants you to live a routine, same kind of life day in, day out. It wants you probably to eat the same things day in and day out. It wants things to feel predictable because it wants to create that sense of safety and security by being able to predict the future. And when you start to go down this road of noticing the signs that things need to change, and you start admitting to yourself, maybe things aren't working in this relationship. Maybe my attitude in this is not really working for me. Maybe I'm not really actually enjoying this career path anymore. Maybe I don't really like living here anymore. Maybe I want something different. when you start owning that part of yourself and you start actually like really listening and being aware of that voice rather than putting it in the corner, which is a part of the process, please remember, ignoring the fact that you need to change or that you even want to change, that's a part of the process. But when you start being aware of that voice and when you start listening and exploring and owning and acknowledging it, that sets off all these mini alarm bells inside of you, because now it's essentially like you've cut off the screen or the movie that is your future. You've cut off that predictability. You've said, I don't want to go down this road anymore. I want to go down this road, but I don't actually know what that road looks like and I don't know what's ahead on that road. And so all these alarm bells go off inside of you. And this is where we start to do the dance. This is where we start to dance between, maybe this is a sign that I shouldn't change. Maybe I should stay exactly where I am. Or maybe I should be doing this over here instead. Or it's when we start to do that dance between what we know in our hearts is right for us and what our head wants, what our ego wants. And that dance between the head and the heart, that dance is scary. That dance can feel chaotic in itself. That dance can just feel uncomfortable. And part of probably why you're here listening to this podcast is because you probably navigate that dance quite often. You probably go through that dance quite often between your head and your heart, what's true for you and what's maybe the mold or the person that you think you should be or the life that you think you should be living versus the life that you want and know is right in your heart for you, which usually takes some exploring and some trying the wrong things before you figure it out. And it's really difficult. It's a difficult part of the journey. Change can feel chaotic. Instead of it being simple, change can feel scary. It often does. And the brutal reality and truth that we each have to face is that it is easier and more comfortable to stay stuck in the same old boring jobs, the routines, the relationships, the careers, if you don't accept that, if you don't accept that it's easier to stay stuck, that there's a part of you that's always going to want to stay stuck, that there's a part of you that gets a need met, that gets that feeling of safety from being exactly where you are and exactly who you are right now, doing exactly what you do right now, unless you start to really accept that truth, that there's parts of you that don't want to change, you're going to add another roadblock on that journey for yourself of change, of transformation, of growth, of healing, whatever the word you assign to it. Part of embracing the chaos of change is letting it be chaotic, is owning the fact and accepting the fact that it's probably going to feel messy, that the journey is not going to be linear, it's not going to be elegant, it's not going to be step by step. But do not let that discourage you from going after it. Do not let the feelings of resistance and fear and anxiety and overwhelm that come up, don't let that be the sign that this is not for you. Don't let that become something greater than it actually is, which is a response to change, which is a response that almost any human being on the planet would have about change. I changed my job and I started studying again, which will change my business. And that change took me well over a year to go through that whole process. Well over a year. I did the dance. I went down the wrong roads a few times. I stayed on the path that I was on. I got stuck for a really long time. And eventually, going through that process, I somehow got to the point that I am at now, where I've managed to make those changes. But it was really difficult. And I found myself going down a highly critical road, and you might have found yourself here too. I found myself creating even more stuckness by shaming myself and saying, oh my God, you are just useless. You are just stupid. Those are some of the thoughts that would go around in my head. That you're useless, that you're silly for being stuck here, that you know you need to change, you know you need to do something different, and you're not. And that's a really difficult place to be as well. But again, it's another effort to keep you stuck. It's another effort to stop you from changing, and it's another block in the path. It's all these little sneaky ways that your brain tries to stop you from changing. And it's all of the ways in which you have to start embracing and meeting. And this is why I love parts work so much, because knowing that there's a part of myself that is resisting change and being able to name that part of myself, whether it comes up as an emotion or a thought or a feeling or a sensation or just a story that I'm telling myself, putting that into words and distancing it from myself and saying, okay, I'm over here and I'm in my heart and I'm in my truth and I know that I want to change. And there's a part of me over there that's really resistant to it. How can I help that part of me? How can I support that part of me that is probably scared shitless that things might go wrong, right? That is probably fucking terrified. The period leading up to starting a new job and to starting study again, my brain started fantasizing about all the things that could go wrong. It started playing all these roads and all these videos in my head, all these visions of me failing, of me getting overwhelmed, of me messing up, of me not finishing the study, of me not being able to handle things. It started creating this story and looping on this story that I'm not capable, that I'm not good enough, that I should stay over here and keep doing what I'm doing, even though it's not working the way that I want it to. And to sit with that part of myself, and I get a bit annoyed when people say sit with, because we don't really know what that actually means, but I do genuinely like saying sit with and then adding on that part of myself, because you could literally imagine if you could sit in a room with the version of you that doesn't want you to change, the version of you that's scared you might fail. If you could imagine yourself sitting in a room with that part of you, I think it makes, the word sitting with your emotions that we often hear, it makes that easier. Because when you have a friend, a family member, a colleague that's going through something, the first thing you genuinely do is you usually try and sit down with them. You usually try and sit there and you try and listen. And this part of you that is afraid of change, it needs that from you too. So I have a few questions for you. And you might hate me for asking these questions, but we're going to anyway. What do you want to change in your life? What change has been singing out to you from your heart? What journey do you want to embark upon? What difference do you want to see in your life? What new things do you want to try? What things or ways of doing things or being do you want to let go of? Genuinely sit there with yourself for a hot second. And I know it's really tempting probably right now to switch this over to something that's a bit faster, to switch it over to music, to switch it over to a podcast that's just giving you an overload of information, but ultimately keeping you asleep. Genuinely, what do you want to change in your life? What is singing out to you that's important for you to do differently? And don't run away in this moment if you can. In this moment, what's in my heart is I want to love more. I've spoken a lot about this desire that I have to be a partner and a mother. And I'm gripping, you can't see me, but I'm gripping the edge of my desk saying this to you here because it's scary. It's scary to say. It's scary to admit for me. I want to make more of an impact. I want to make more of a difference. I want to live with people rather than alone. I want to travel more and experience more things. I want to feel more free. What things do you want to change? What is really important for you? Just let it come up. Don't force something to sing out to you, but just maybe give yourself a minute, and you might even like to pause this for a minute to just ask yourself what that is. It's hard to listen when you won't let something speak. It's hard to listen to yourself when you don't give yourself the chance to speak. So do that. I encourage you to do that now. And whatever whispers are coming up for you, whatever things are arising, you don't have to make these changes overnight, and they're not some goal that you have to attain and that you have to work really hard for. They're just simply desires that are in your heart, and they may very well be a lot closer than you think. And your brain is probably going to start to try and problem solve and break it down and try and map out a plan of how you can get there. But you don't have to do that right now. I want to inspire you to create a bit more of the chaos of change in your life. Maybe you've played it safe for a little while because you've needed to. I certainly have. I went through some things over the past couple of years, and my career has been a place that has for sure taken a hit, and I've had to play it very safe there because other things were feeling so chaotic, and that's okay. But now that I'm feeling good and like I have capacity and like it's time, it's probably been time for a little while, but that's okay. Now I've started on this journey of change, and it's fucking terrifying, and it's been fascinating to see what my brain's come up with. But it's so important, and I want to inspire you to look at maybe some of the areas where you're sitting really comfortably, but you know that there's things that you want. And I want to remind you that you are deserving and capable of these things. It can be so easy to listen to the voice in your head that says that it's too hard, that you'd have to give things up, that you're not capable of that. It's really easy to listen to that voice that makes you play small, that voice that wants you to just remain where you are because it feels comfortable and safe and it's predictable. That word again, predictable. When you make that decision to change and start down that road before you're ready, that's a pretty cool moment. And you're probably going to look back on your life and there'll be a couple of those moments maybe you've had already where you have made that really big decision to make a change even though you didn't feel ready. And this could be one of those for you now, or it could be further down the road. But I want you to let a little bit of that chaos in, if you can. A little bit of that fear, maybe a bit of anxiety and overwhelm. You don't have to figure it all out right now. But I want you to let it be true. Let that desire for change be true and be heard and be seen. And remind yourself that you are deserving and you are capable of it. And I want to share now a couple of the the main things that I've been doing in this process, one in particular of navigating chaos and overwhelm within change, I want to share a few of my really important tips, one in particular that you can take away right now that's quite tangible. And that first tip is to get grounded. And I've heard the word grounded so many times before. You can think of actually grounding your feet in the earth. You can think of feeling grounded in a sense of feeling calm. But it was something that I'd forgotten. And maybe you have too. It was something that I'd forgotten. And feeling grounded when I'm feeling overwhelmed is incredibly game-changing. And for me, I always thought that feeling grounded meant that I was calm. And that's just not true for me anymore. And this is why I want to pose this question to you is, what does being grounded feel like for you? Because it's different for everyone. Some people are going to be grounded, and the way that they feel grounded is, the sort of vision of a Buddhist monk sitting in lotus pose, deep in meditation. Maybe that's how you feel the most grounded. For me, that's not it at all. For me, feeling grounded means feeling a little bit playful. It means feeling safe to be myself and to be playful and curious. And that's what feeling grounded feels like for me. It puts me really in touch with who I am. And my absolute favorite way to do this at the moment is through visualizing my feet on the ground and the earth, or vines coming up from the earth and going over my feet, and almost creating me to be part of a tree, if you will. If you look at trees and you see how grounded they are in the earth, and you look at the roots, I know it sounds so cheesy to say this, and right now my brain is saying, Kathleen, you sound like an idiot. Shut up. You don't normally speak like this, but I'm going to let that part of me know that we're okay and I'm allowed to say this, but go look at a damn tree. Go look at the roots. Go look at how beautifully they connect into the ground, into the earth. And this visual for me has been so powerful, feeling grounded like a tree, feeling like I'm part of a tree, feeling like the earth has got me and is supporting me. And that visual, and that simple visual, and it literally takes me about 30 seconds. It's changed so many moments of overwhelm for me into moments of playfulness and curiosity, into moments where I've been able to have a giggle and a laugh, into moments where I've been able to forge ahead on this path instead of tucking my tail between my legs and turning around and going home. So tip number 1 is get grounded, but got to get grounded in your own way. There's multiple ways to ground, but getting grounded in your own way, try that visual for a start. I'm going to pop a little practice of getting grounded, 5 minutes, free audio, pop it in. It'll take you through that visualization. My stomach just rumbled. I'm starving. It'll take you through this visualization of getting grounded, and I'd love for you to listen to it and see what it feels like for you. But yeah, get clear on what it means for you. My second tip is getting clear on what is changing and what's staying the same. Quite often when you're feeling that overwhelm and that chaos in change, it can feel like every fucking thing is going wrong at one time. It can feel like, oh my God, this is happening in my relationship, and this is happening at my job, and this is happening for my health, and this is happening in my family, and that can feel so overwhelming. And something that can really help those parts of you that feel really unstable when it comes to everything changing is reminding yourself of exactly what is changing and exactly what's staying the same, right? I still sleep with my same, bedspread that I've been sleeping with for the past year. I still go home to the same place each night, or I still eat the same meal. But try and find a few things in your life that aren't changing, that are staying the same, and let those parts of yourself that need predictability, that need to latch onto that for safety, let them latch onto those things. My last tip here, which again is quite an important one, when you go about creating change, you need to create such a strong why on why you're changing, on why you're doing this, on why you're embarking on this journey. It can be so easy to set a New Year's resolution. It can be so easy to have some change that you want to see just flit across your mind, and you say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get a new job. I'm going to get a new thing. I'm going to start a side hustle. I'm going to start investing. That's a change that I really want to make at the moment, but I have not created a strong enough why around, and I will be. You can hold me accountable to that. But creating a really strong why on why you're changing this. Why are you doing this? What does it mean for you? What vision can you support yourself with when things start to feel overwhelming? I know this is often the step that we tend to skip. We tend to focus on the outcome and on the actions, but this foundational work of like, why am I really wanting to change this? Like, why is this fucking important to me? That's important. It's really important. So take some time today. Take some time to chat with your mates as well, with your friends, about why you're changing and why those changes are important to you. Take some time to actually dig into that. If you're someone who journals, tomorrow's journaling session is creating your why for some of the things that you want to change and why it's important to you, why it's important to your future self, your current self, your past self, the people in your life, whatever it is. So get grounded, get clear on what's changing and what's staying the same, and create a super strong why. Those are my 3 biggest tips for navigating the chaos that is change. And I hope that the biggest takeaway that you took from this podcast was that you are worthy and capable of change, that you deserve to have your, for lack of a better word, to have your heart's desires met. You deserve to see some of your dreams, all of your dreams, come into your reality, and they may very well be a lot closer than you think. Change is a really scary part of the human experience, but it is also the human experience. It's also what makes us thrive and live and tell stories of those times in our lives that were just, they were just so intense. So support yourself through these moments, but do not let it deter you from the fact that this change that you want to create, it's on your heart for a reason. You deserve it, you're worthy, and you're capable of doing this. And I fucking believe in you even if you don't. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you back next week on Monday.